ag- again, a little bit pun intended, but zooming out on a global scale, you have Pope Francis comes along, and given his sort of uh, um, not always direct and clear vocalizations about issues, I think he starts talking about the environment. And honestly, I think some Catholics, I would admit to be guilty to this, of kind of like oh boy, he's we got a tree hugger, you know. Um, it's become, if you care about the environment, it's become so perverted that even when the Pope talks about it, I think a lot of people have an instinct to like brush it off and be like, that's leftist, that's far leftist, and woke. And it's not. That's sort of what I've heard you kind of fight against, is this bringing balance to this. No, Catholics are called to do kind of what he said. So like um in his encyclical Laudato Si, I mean, he's really calling to this. This is our home. We have to take care of it. So, okay, when that's happening, what were your thoughts? And what were your thoughts on that? Were you happy, like, oh, finally, we have a pope now who's even bringing this issue up? This is serious. And then how can you
Yeah.
interpret, yeah, first that, but then how can you interpret what Francis probably was trying to get at for people who wrote him off?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say that I mean, for me, this was quite a lot later. Laudato Si came out in 2015, by which time I'd been working as a scientist for more than 10 years and this issues. But I think the much more important issue for listeners to this podcast is that Francis wasn't initiating any of this. He was picking up on very strong threads from St. John Paul II and then Benedict XVI, who've been talking about human ecology, for example, for a really long time. And again, they're just completely concordant with the Catholic tradition. We think right back to Genesis. What did God tell us to do? Pretty much straight away, he said, "Hi, lads, Adam and Eve, here we are, right? I'm putting you in this garden. I want you to till it and nurture. I want you to care for creation. Your job is to name these animals and basically be in charge of them, participate with me in care for the created order." So this is absolutely central to who we are as people made in the image and likeness of God. It's not a kind of additional part of being a Catholic. It's fundamental to our nature, and it's fundamental to fulfillment of who we are as humans and where we're placed with regard to both God and to the rest of creation. So our job as stewards um, is central to who we are. So I think it's really important to recognize that Pope Francis wasn't initiating something new. He wasn't introducing something new. He was absolutely within the current of the Catholic tradition. Now, I should also say in passing that this incredible politicization of environmental issues is substantially an American problem. It's much less evident in Europe, and in Europe, it's much easier to be a faithful Christian and also to be overtly or transparently concerned with looking after what God has made. I mean, it's really unfortunate. I can understand why it is the case here, of course, because it appears that the people who are talking about the environment are also the ones who are talking about abortion and the redefinition of marriage and so on. So it's obvious these things appear to be aligned, but of course they're not. And so what I would really like to do, what I strive to do in my writing and thinking, this is partly why I came to be a professor at Ave Maria University, is to propose and re-propose to Catholics that this is not a left-wing political issue. This is something that we have to do. And in fact, and we need to be bold about it, we need to say, well, we're Catholics, right? And we have a robust, rigorous, intellectually satisfactory understanding of what it is to be human. We have what St. John Paul II called, actually, in this context, an adequate anthropology. We know who we are, what the created order is, who God is. And that is actually going to enable us, that framework of reality is going to enable us to be the best stewards of creation. And we need to be confident about that. We're very confident when we talk about sex and marriage, aren't we? And about the Catholic social teaching and so on. But I think we also need to be boldly saying to those engaged with secular environmentalism that actually, because we have this right anthropology, we really have something to contribute to the environmental conversation. In fact, we were the first ones that were concerned with stewardship, and we're actually the ones that know how to do it properly. So I'm trying, and I find that in my scientific work, I can't go that far, but I can go as far as virtue ethics in the Aristotelian mode. People are willing to listen to that because it doesn't require God, but it does require us to be rightly oriented, like me on the fishing boat and getting my RCIA at the same time. And then with collaborations with other professors here at the university, I can then explicitly engage with Catholic theology and again point out that this is what we're meant to do. And with regard to Pope Francis and his way of talking about these issues, again, I know why people get frustrated or got frustrated with Pope Francis, because sometimes his moral discussions seemed ambiguous. But with regard to the environment, I think these slightly open questions are actually more appropriate, because whenever you're thinking about stewardship of a local ecosystem, for example, a village or a town or a forest, you're always engaging with really, really plural understandings of how to do it. What's important? Are we interested in the lake? Are we interested in the trees? Are we interested in the roads or the buildings or the people or the different uses? You can't just have a prescriptive top-down solution. It doesn't work like that. You're always trying to deal with people's complex emotional engagements with the natural system and trying to navigate through to what is the best thing to do. So throwing out possibilities and discussing them and recognizing the diversity of opinion. In this case, you tend not to be dealing with objective moral issues where there is a single answer from which you have to work. You tend to be dealing with humans within this overarching reality that we do have responsibility for the earth, and we can't avoid that. We're failing in our duty as children of God if we don't take that on.
I just
Sorry, yeah, you had a big question. I've tried to hop across the bits
No,
there.
that was great. Yeah, that was really. I was thinking, you know, just due to my age, that I wasn't, I was thinking, why wouldn't I have been so aware? I mean, I'm also not, as well versed as I would like or should be, sort of in the writings of prior popes. But I grew up with Francis, and I was just thinking the media is really the culprit. And what's the difference? Like American media compared to the rest of the world, American media is so, especially legacy media, has been so manipulative. And so I was thinking, when he did come out and he's talking about support of the environment, just everything here becomes so hyper general immediately. It's hyper generalized. It's like a headline, and then you form an opinion. And so the media is like, Pope Francis, like, because again, at that same time, the American political left is going after cows, meat production, animal, like any type of like meat eating is bad, period. And then the Green New Deal, New Green Deal, I think the Green New Deal. I mean, you have all these things. Like
Yeah.
it's a barrage of manipulation, and it's all clearly not actually to help the environment or the earth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just think they just threw him into the mix as like, look, you have to. It was all just, alarmist, even though what he wrote was good. Thank you so much for listening, for your time. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And go to the link in the description below to support this channel. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and God bless.